Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today, we've got another Gun Gripe episode for you, and this one is a real doozy, and I actually am shocked that we have not done a video on this particular concept yet, because Chad and I have complained about this for years, and I don't know how it's eluded us this long, but we're going to be diving into the concept of, are your guns registered? All right, there seems to be a lot of misinformation floating around about the subject, and believe me, for folks that are in the know or folks that have been gun owners a long time, it really irks a lot of folks that, you see this blatant myth getting passed around. We're going to try to clear the air and dispel any rumors that might be floating around out there. But before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting Gun Gripes. If you're looking for a career in gunsmithing technology, you want to learn about reloading, more on the business side, they are a great distance learning group. Certainly a great school to look into. They've got some wonderful instructors, awesome programs, great financial incentives. So you want to start your career in the gun world, check out Sonoran Desert Institute, STI, and tell them we sent you. Okay, so here's the thing, is when you're dealing with the Second Amendment, right, when you're dealing with gun rights, it would seem on the surface, right, that you're only going to deal in absolutes, right? The black and white, it either is or it isn't, and everything like that. Unfortunately, when it comes to the way that not only the legal structure of how our country's ran in terms of, all the different laws that are out there, both federal and state, and all the local laws and everything, there's a lot of random areas that the law will dip their toes in. And those ripples, as they spread, they cross-contaminate each other's pools in many situations, if you will. So I would like to think that where this discussion lies is probably more in the gray area than it is in black and white. And unfortunately, in our society, it seems to be a reoccurring theme that many things occur in the gray zone rather than what should just be blatantly black and white. And we're going to kind of dive into this concept a little bit and talk a little bit more about it. But holistically, there is no such thing as a glowing big brother looking over your shoulder gun registry, okay?
On a federal level.
On a federal level, okay. But we're going to dive into this a little bit now. But I think the gripe, the crux of the gripe, is that people always say, where you hear a relative go, hey, I just bought a gun, I want to know where I need to go to get it registered. Like they think that there's some glowing, registry that they've got to be a part of just to simply be a gun owner, and there's just been a lot of misinformation spread about it over the years.
That's sort of what prompted this conversation getting started again, but we haven't been at Moss in a long time. We used to work there on a regular basis, and a lot of customers would come in and they'd go to purchase a firearm, and they would ask, like, okay, well, where do I need to go get this registered? And we have to explain this to numerous customers. It's just like a broken record. It's like, well, there's no gun registry in Georgia. You fill out a 4473 and your background check comes back or your carrier permit's good. You leave with your firearm and that's the end of it. But recently I had a friend of my in-laws, ask me about purchasing a firearm and the same thing. And I had to go through this topic like 4 times with her, trying to clarify the fact that no, you don't have to go and register your gun in Georgia. What she was misinformed about is that you have to go to the probate court in order to get fingerprinted for a carry permit. So she thought getting fingerprinted for a carry permit was the same thing as registering your firearm. Now, as we discussed, there's no global gun registry on a federal level in the United States. Now, there are certain states that do require registration, okay, such as California, such as New York, such as Maryland, the District of Columbia. Some of those places only require the registration of handguns or what they call assault pistols, or they might say assault rifles, scary black rifles. But there is a such thing as gun registry on a state level.
So let's sort of just jump real quick to this simple thing here, all right? The 10th Amendment. All right, this is where some of this comes from. You can kind of get this idea. So yes. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So essentially, states, all 50 states, have a right to pass whatever laws they want, as long as they don't like step on the toes of federal law in any sort of way. So, we've talked about this in previous videos. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but the reason that that's important to know is because, all right, remember when we did the bill, or the video where we talked about the marijuana legalization and how certain states are just turning a blind eye to it, although federally, okay, it is unlawful. Cannabis is unlawful federally. But certain states go, oh, well, we're going to decriminalize it. Now, it doesn't mean that the federal police won't go in and raid you or give you a hard time or enforce federal law, but that the states are going to turn a blind eye. So, likewise, just like the states can, let's just say, turn a blind eye to a federal law, and we're not talking just something like, illicit substances or firearms or any type of other regulatory headache, right? It could be anything. States can also go, oh, well, we actually want to have maybe something a little bit more than what the federal government provides in terms of regulation. Now, I personally cannot see why in a million years anyone would want more regulation when we've already got so much already. So, but the point is, to credit what Chad is getting at here, the 10th Amendment does give the states the ability to go, oh, well, you know what, this particular area here, we want this very specific way of handling it. And yes, some states do have, now it's being challenged in the Supreme Court. We're going to see some really interesting Supreme Court cases coming down here in these next few years, arguably maybe even these next few months, right? Where, things like the Illinois FOID cards, and some of the really strict licensing requirements, such as the state of New York or the city of New York and things like that. So there are some things where these states have said, oh, we want this really crazy, draconian, super, super strict, gun policies and things that are being challenged. But states do have the right to regulate those items in any way they see fit. And that's something we're granted under the 10th Amendment. The difference, though, is that whereby the 10th Amendment can, all right, if it's a free state, all right, look at Florida or, even Georgia right now, we're pushing for constitutional carry, right? If you live in a free state where the people running the place are cool people and they're, doing good things and using states' rights in a way that is going to enhance the lives of the people that live there, well, then that's a good thing. That makes sense, right? Yeah, we obviously want the states to be able to regulate our own existence the way we want outside of the federal government's, influence, right? But where it does get a little squirrely is when people take that 10th Amendment thing and go, okay, well, we're gonna make it worse, right? We're gonna make it more strict. We're gonna make it harder. We're gonna make it more obtrusive, more infringing. And I think with a lot of gun owners, that tends to be a major issue that people have. When they live in, you always hear people say, oh, I live in a free state or I live in a communist state, or whatever they want to say, right? Like, oh, well, I don't live in a free state. What do they mean when they say that? Well, yeah, certain states have really strict gun laws that even supersede what they even have to deal with at the federal level. So something to think about there.
One thing with many of these states that require registries, it kind of goes back to the 94 crime bill and the original assault weapons ban. Many of these states just took that federal legislation and copied it, literally copied and pasted it to their state legislature, passed a state level law, and they have just continued on with that sort of assault weapons ban mantra over the past 20 plus years. But like I mentioned, Georgia has a law in place that prohibits the registration of firearms, okay? So there's several other states that are in that club. Delaware, Florida, Idaho, Pennsylvania, that's long guns only, it specifies, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Vermont. So all these states prohibit the registration of firearms. But as I mentioned, certain states do require the registration of pre-ban assault weapons, 50 cal rifles, or even large capacity magazines, 30 round mags. California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, all the usual suspects where we know that gun laws are extremely draconian. So if you are in one of those states, then yes, this video isn't really relevant to you because yes, your guns are registered to a certain degree. And there's even provisions in some states where if you move to that state, you have to inform law enforcement of your firearms that you are in possession of. You have to give them a physical list of the firearms you own when you go and move into that state, which is totally crazy. And it is tyrannical and it is unconstitutional. And like you mentioned, all right, these laws these laws that are passed in these states, they've been getting a lot of fight lately from organizations. We always say it, like Gun Owners of America, like Firearms Policy Coalition. They're taking these fights to the courts, for these unconstitutional, draconian laws that have been on the books for years and years and years, and even new things that have just passed. They might go through the legislative process. They might pass. The governors might sign these bills, but does it make them right? Does it make them constitutional on a state level? No, absolutely it doesn't. And that's where these battles are going to be fought moving forward. We've already said it. It's going to be in the courts, and we're going to see a lot of new precedents set in the courts, mostly the lower courts, but hopefully the Supreme Court over the coming years, that doesn't allow these laws like this to even gain muster in committees and be able to get to the floors of these states for votes and get to the governor's desk. They'll just die in the water before they're even thought about.
It's really thought-provoking to think about it that way because, the Supreme Court really is going through a trial by fire right now. That list that you pulled up with those states that don't have, that prohibit a gun registry, I find it interesting that Vermont was on that list, correct? Okay, so I got a funny story. This is sort of related to the same exact thing that Chad was talking about, where he had a family member that said, "Oh, where do I need to go to register a gun I bought?"
Look, right? to be honest, all right, she was originally from New York, but she's lived in Georgia for like 20 years.
Okay,
so, just so you know, but that's her. Her home state is New York, and obviously the draconian laws that are there, they kind of carried with her. So it was just ignorance to the new laws that are in Georgia.
Of course.
Anyways, just a little detail.
So just like you had that similar situation happen with you, I was having a discussion with my aunt who lives in Vermont, and I don't want this to be a long story, but I promise it is relevant to this, and I think that you will understand where I'm coming from by the end of this story.
Is it about maple syrup?
It is about maple syrup. So my family runs a maple syrup farm in Vermont, okay? And they make all of these different, not a shameless plug or anything. I'm not even going to tell you the name of the business, but they run a sugar farm, and they make all different kind of treats and everything like that. So the area of Vermont that they're in, it's weird because Vermont is one of those kind of states where you've got the outdoorsy dudes and you've got all the hunters and people that hunt and everything and all of the outdoorsy people and the outdoors is a huge thing up there. I mean, people love to hang out outside and do all kind of cool stuff, but there's also like this kind of like quasi hippie thing going on, right? So it's like everyone's real liberal and you have to check every single box or you're going to be an outcast from society. And I find it strange that you would think that a state like Vermont, based on, let's just say, the demographics, the kind of people they are, their political beliefs, you would think, oh, well, they would have the strictest laws of all. But to think that that's a relatively short list of states where they're not allowed to have some sort of a gun registry, you wouldn't think Vermont would be on that list. And it's just so funny to hear my aunt talk about, oh, yeah, well, these Karens, these Karens walk into my shop and buy my $14 a pint ice cream. They had the CEO of Ben & Jerry's come in and taste their ice cream. And he said, look, I thought about buying this recipe from you, but we can't make this ice cream. We can't make ice cream of this quality, right? And she sells these bougie little pints of ice cream for like $14. And those Karens come in with coolers and they buy every scrap of it because it's all, no GMOs and all organic and gluten and all the random grass-fed and every little bit of organic mess.
They massage the cows.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything you've ever wanted in a tub of ice cream.
Tiny hands.
But the point is, hearing my aunt talk about how people, conduct themselves up there, where it's like there's two very different subsets of society. Once you just get out of the basic cities, everybody's rednecks. So that's what's interesting, and I think that there are a lot of legislatures in these various states, and there's a lot of lawmakers and elected representatives in these states. You have to ask yourself, do they really know who they're representing? I mean, we've said this in other videos before, but, do they really understand the people that they're supposed to be representing and what they really want? And that's a pristine example Vermont might as well be a polar opposite of Georgia or Florida, but there they are, and they have decent gun laws.
Well, they're full of independents, so there's a lot of moderates up there that will sway one way or the other pertaining to things. But a lot of these laws that are on the books are kind of like
but
old.
Freedom's freedom.
It is.
They want freedom.
It really is. Yeah, for sure.
They want freedom.
But a lot of these laws that are on the books are typically pretty old laws. I mean, just like the one law that we've got in Kennesaw, Georgia here.
Ding, 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 ding.
So that law's been on the books for decades. About every household has to have at least a firearm in the house. It's a physical mandate in the city of Kennesaw. But it's not really enforced. It just happens to be on the books, and it's been there for, like I said, decades, and nothing's really ever been done about it because it's
a deterrent.
Yeah, I mean, so anyways, but.
You said something very provocative, though, and it's that these laws are old. They've been on the books a long time. It's important for people to remember.
That people like common sense back then?
Well, what's important to remember is that the political landscape was different 25, 35, 40 years ago, or however long ago, right? Some of these laws, these anti-gun laws that are at the state level on the books are old laws. They've been around forever. The overall thought process was different back then. The threats that people perceived was different back then. The culture was different back then. The amount of people that owned guns was different back then. The identity of people who owned guns was different back then. So it really does. These, state level legislatures and all of your elected representatives and all the state level battles, they are also going through a trial by fire, because they're going to see that these old dusty laws that they can just go and keep reintroducing them and trying to get them passed, that ain't going to fly anymore. That is not sitting well with a large majority of people, and you're being spoon-fed this lie, right, that an overwhelming amount of people want extended background checks, or an overwhelming amount of people want stricter gun laws. That's not true. They're lying to you, right? So, and I think it's getting harder and harder for them to maintain the lie, right? What did my grandpa used to say? He used to say, if you tell one lie, you have to tell 100, right? They can't cover up for themselves much longer. They're eventually going to have to face the bull in the room and grab it by the horns and go, you know what? We're going to have to do what people want, or we're not going to be elected anymore. So, and you have to understand that one thing they very much care about is getting reelected. So if you tickle that heartstring, you've got them. So that's one thing they do care about, is getting reelected.
That little taste of power, corrupts. What do they say? What is it about power and corruption?
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. So. It's crazy to think about, but we mainly wanted to make this video just to kind of clarify this whole topic of registration and how much misinformation and pure ignorance there is out there, and it's mainly just from being uneducated about the topic. It's not like the media out there is spreading the facts about gun ownership. They're only spewing what they want, to fit the narrative of getting guns out of citizens' hands. But if we just...
To be fair, a lot of gun owners also aren't that much engaged either.
I know.
So it's also on the responsibility of gun owners to be well engaged and informed about what their rights entail. I mean, rights come with responsibilities. And as much as sometimes I hate it, we're a nation of laws. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to know what the law is, right? So it's like ignorance is no excuse, right? You ever heard that? Heard someone say that?
Yep. I mean, it's said in law enforcement and the courts quite a bit.
It's a two-way street.
Yep.
There is a giant indoctrination camp in front of you on this thing, right? We know that. But it's also, just because you're being misinformed by somebody else doesn't mean it's still not your right and responsibility to, have informed consent on your part, to make sure you understand. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
But speaking of registries and stuff like that, we wanted to talk a little bit about this whole firearms frame and receiver deal that's going on right now. If you guys remember, we did a video a little while back on a proposed rule that the DOJ put forth, and there was a comment period open for a while. The comment period is now closed, but numerous individuals, companies, gun owners from across the board commented on this rule, and what it would entail is changing the definition of a firearms frame and receiver, to include potential Glock type, like striker-fired uppers, polymer 80 kits, 80% AR receivers, things like that. And just recently there was some news that kind of popped up with the ATF seeking some information from dealers regarding, how this proposed rule would affect their business overall, but also like how long it would take for them to mark inventory that they have in stock with serial numbers and such, how much it would cost them and how much time it would take to implement those changes. So that's the first thing that we've seen recently, but Eric found an interesting article on Ammo Land. I'll let him go over it since he read it.
I would like to just share a few excerpts from this article from our friend John Crump over at Ammo Land. If you're not following Ammo Land, make sure you're checking out the site. Mm-hmm. It's great. John Crump does some great investigative reporting, and he's always really like kicking over rocks and looking for every little tiny thing going on. So
he is.
This article literally dropped today from John. The ATF's been caught red-handed fabricating a BS reason for a new gun rule. All right, so the synopsis, essentially, this article, I'm not going to read all of it, but the ATF claimed that numerous federal firearms licensees contacted the Bureau and asked how to handle privately manufactured firearms that they take into inventory. The word numerous can mean many different things to different people, and this is John Crump's words here. Some might consider numerous to be 3 or more. To others, it starts at much bigger numbers, such as 300. What can be agreed on by most logically honest people is that the number must be greater than 1. All right, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines numerous as consisting of great numbers or units or individuals. All right, so how many requests do you think were made to these alphabet agencies from FFLs regarding these frames, right? All right, how many would you think, right? All right, well, how about 1? Literally, 1 request. That's it, okay? The response shows that the ATF received 1 request from 1 FFL sent to 1 industry operation inspectors, also known as IOI for some of you in the industry, about what privately manufactured firearms in August of 2020. But it just goes to show you the level of, draconian, let's just say dirty politics that they're willing to play. They're willing to weaponize these alphabet agencies in a way that will hurt people they disagree with politically. And that's a very scary area, right? I mean, is the DOJ, FBI, ATF, CIA, all of these alphabet agencies, do they exist to be a weapon of the state? So what happens when, the power changes hands, right? When the balance of power shifts into a different area, right? And then these people go, oh, well, we understand this is a law, but we can't be dealing with these pesky laws. We're going to need you to interpret it the way we want you to interpret it. So I think that there's probably 2 very distinctive realities that we are facing in regards to not only this frame and receiver rule, but also something like the brace rules. I mean, you look at how the bump stock thing is still being fought in the courts, right? There's 2 very distinctive realities that Chad and I discussed a few days ago, but I'll just lay those realities out. Maybe you agree with me, maybe Chad disagrees or agrees, but these are the realities that I see that are in place in regards to these alphabet agencies. A is that the government at large, or let's just say Biden or Biden's cabinet or whatever, has directed these people to weaponize in every single way their powers and bypass the legislative process in order to basically get things done that would normally and typically require legislative, girth, right? We have checks and balances for a reason. So he's either utilizing these alphabet agencies to knowingly and willingly bypass the balance of powers that we have for how laws are passed, and a very non-traditional lawmaking process, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's easy for them to go, well, we're not going to change the law. We're just reinterpreting it. So that's a really easy way for them to go, oh, well, see, we didn't have to go through Congress. So that's one very distinctive possibility. Or 2, all right, the amount of, let's just say, political girth that is being applied to this situation on the part of the actual alphabet agencies. All right, the other distinction, B, is that maybe these alphabet agencies are tired of being drugged through the mud by everybody, right? I mean, imagine being the hallway monitors of the gun world and knowing that everyone looks at you and despises you. Maybe, just maybe, All right, this is another distinctive possibility. Maybe these alphabet agencies are tired of being dragged through the mud by the government, and they're going, you know what? We're just going to do this by the book, y'all. Mm-hmm. We're going to go through here and we're going to do our due process. Even though it's one request, we're going to go through our due process. We're going to read the comments, and we're going to make a decision based on every amount of goodness and logic that could ever be in somebody's heart. Now, my thinking process is that we're closer to A than B. Mm-hmm. But there's a part of me that maybe foolishly wants to believe that maybe there is still a shred of honor in these alphabet agencies somewhere. Now, it might be deep-rooted, and they may be like the guy from Office Space that has the office in the janitor's closet. But there's somebody there that's got a conscience, and I really do want to believe that they're trying to do the right thing. But I guess time will tell. But, I mean, what do you think?
Just call me Milton.
What do you think?
So, my whole issue with this news breaking is it's not the FFL's fault, all right, for having the due diligence to make sure that they are doing everything in their business by the books, all right, because FFLs are looked at through a microscope, all right. If you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, then you could have your license revoked, and then there goes your business, all right, just like that. So this FFL who reached out to their IOI was not doing anything wrong, all right. They were just inquiring as far as how to handle a particular firearm, bringing it into their inventory and putting it in their books, right? So for the ATF to take that and it being the only request pertaining to that topic and blatantly lie about it in order to, satiate
further a political goal.
Literally, they're just satiating Joe Biden's request that the agency look at these frames and receivers and create a new rule, to encompass them into the modern era is the whole gist of it.
Yeah, don't piss on me and tell me it's raining.
Yes, but I really want to feel like as Eric mentioned, I want to feel like this isn't going to go anywhere. But the thing is, the more things like this that the alphabet agencies try to push down, our throats, as far as bypassing the legitimate processes of altering laws in this country, through the legislative process. The more that they do this, the more the courts are going to look at it. And as long as the courts are allegedly, in the favor of the right side of not only history, but also logic and reason, right? As long as the courts take a look at this and deem this sort of activity unconstitutional, then, as I've mentioned before, it will set precedents for future activity like this to not even become a thing at all.
It's also worth noting that, and look, there's a lot of people are not going to be happy with what I'm about to say, but you know what? It has to be said, all right? It started with Trump, right?
Dude.
I mean, what did Trump do? He banned bump stocks, and so what do all these people do? They go, oh, well, we never thought about just telling the ATF, oh, this is what I want you to do, and bypass the legislative process. That's what Trump did when he banned bump stocks. He bypassed the legislative process, and he set forth, as we said previously, a very dangerous precedent.
Yep.
And we told you already that when an anti-gun president comes in, he's going to use the same exact thing. Oh, well, wait a minute. Well, dang, we don't have to go through the lawmaking process. We don't have to bother with these people. We can just tell them to do what we want them to do, and they'll do it, right? Yep. So, and think about it. The bump stock thing is still in the courts. Like, it has not out of the woods yet, right? So once that mound of crap starts to roll downhill, there ain't going to be no stopping it, right? So first they're going to say that this bump stock thing is unconstitutional. Hey, guess what? You can't do this crap, right? Mm-hmm. And then look at all the other things that they're setting up to do. They are prepared and willing to waste the people's time, the court's time, numerous thousands of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on all these studies and all this crap and all the people they have to hire to conduct these research. And I'm going to tell you, it's real simple. Just look at the Constitution, right? The Second Amendment. It shall not be infringed, man. Like, how hard is that to understand? I can save you all the research and just show you the Constitution. It's just that simple.
Well, we're
a nation of laws, but our laws are bound by the Constitution.
The only bad thing is the people like the DOJ and ATF, they have to please the powers that be. So they have to go through this process. And there were over 300,000 comments submitted just on this particular proposed rule. So
the reason we wanted to bring this up, and I know we've dove into a lot of different concepts in this particular gripe, but I'm glad that we did this because I think it kind of is in that same vein. There's this traditional wisdom, old school wisdom that, oh, well, there's no such thing as a register, or, oh, I have to register my guns. Where do I go register this? And now we see that even despite all these years later and all this time and all of this weird crap going on with all the different states and how they handle this, that even now they're trying to push for more and more of this type of stuff. Now, one would ask, all right, on this frame and receiver rule, well, what's the issue, right? Well, the issue is it's not illegal to make your own firearm. Okay, you can make your own firearm as a citizen, okay? Yeah, and I know that a lot of people go, well, wait a minute, don't you have to register it? Don't you have to put a serial number on it? Now, it behooves you to serial number it so you can keep up with it for your own purposes, but it's not illegal under our laws to make your own firearm. What this does is adds an extra layer of legislative headache and regulatory headache to the exercising of rights by honest citizens everywhere, and increases the burden that FFLs have to go through in terms of taking care of this stuff. At what point does a gun store stop being a gun store and start being some regulatory department of an alphabet agency, right? Is our job to sell guns, or is our job to enforce your laws, right? There's got to be a point where, after a while, y'all need to just back off and let people engage in commerce and engage in business. As long as there's not a bunch of stupid paperwork errors or issues with the books and inventory, let people do what the heck they want. Quit adding all this crap to the list for people to do, It's just a burden on the people that run gun shops.
It is. So I'll say one more thing and just kind of lead back into the original topic. But so you consider what the ATF recently requested of FFLs, right? And my first thought was, okay, well, how can a normal gun dealer who doesn't have a manufacturing license, how can they serialize and manufacture, right? If they serialize these items, then they're manufacturing them, and then they're putting them into their books as a newly manufactured firearm, because as they sit on the shelf, an 80%er is not a firearm. It is just a block of metal that is unfinished, right? So that was my first thought was, okay, well, how is an O1 or an O2 going to serialize these items, without manufacturing? They can't, okay? It's not possible under the current laws, all right? So that's number one. But the reason that we discuss this, too, is just leading back into the whole topic of registration. If these rule changes are allowed to continue, then there's no saying that there might not be a rule down the line that bypasses federal law in some gray area that allows the DOJ or the ATF to start collecting registration data on firearms across the board or particular categories of firearms, even though there's really no provision federally for it. It could happen. The precedent could be set in either direction, really depending on who's in power at the time and the way the culture is moving and the way that the people of this country feel about the political spectrum, which right now is pretty, they have quite a bit of animosity toward what's going on in politics, as we can clearly see. But, it's just a little food for thought and something to think about. But
totally.
This could lead to bad things in the future, if it goes the wrong direction.
That is a fact. That is a fact. And I can't imagine anybody wanting to give these people the key to Pandora's box.
Heck no, we don't need any more inches given to them.
The last thing we need is to give them more power over our lives, period, right? This ain't a gun thing, guys. I don't know if y'all figured that out yet. I hope some of you have. But, I know we talk about guns a lot on this channel, but, it ain't really just about guns. This is about your life, right? This is something that affects your life in many, many ways, right? If they can abuse this bit of power here in order to, take down a political opponent that they just want to take a low stab at and bypass the rules, right? Well, what else are they going to do? What else would they do with that power? So, and I don't think it's wise to give them the key to Pandora's box. I really don't. So
negative.
keep it in the back of your mind, think about it a little bit. Make sure you're staying engaged at local level, the state level. Those battles are important, right? Do not ignore the state's battles when it comes to the Second Amendment or really anything that's going on. Stay involved in your community, period. If it's something that's important to you, you need to be vocal about it. You need to get out there and run for those local offices, right? Run for your state seats, right? Get in there and change it from the inside, and that's how it's going to happen, and it is happening. And I think that you look at all the states with constitutional carry now, and more growing, more adding to that list. It's only a matter of time where they're going to wake up one morning and realize that they were wrong about what people really wanted when it comes to the Second Amendment. They were wrong about it, and they will certainly see that one day, hopefully. But it's our job to make sure that we're trying to let them see the light, see what people really are about. So have a great day. Many more videos on the way. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you want to support the channel directly, there's a few ways you can do so. You can become a Patreon, or you can go over to Ballistic Ink, pick yourself up a snazzy new t-shirt. We've got hats and beanies and jackets and shirts and all kinds of cool things that will fill your heart with delight. Those are the most direct ways you can support us. A huge thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being a part of what we do. Many more gun gripes on the way. Have yourselves a great day. We'll see you soon.
See you guys.